Welcome to the Creative Mountain Mama podcast. This week, I am joined by Hannah at the Casual Homeschooler. She has a really unique approach to homeschooling that I really think will resonate with everyone. She talks about homeschool as well as slow living and living a family-centered life. Thank you so much for joining me, Hannah.
Thanks for having me.
Anything new lately?
Well, I just have my first teenager on Saturday. So she's just turned 13, and so it's definitely
Congrats.
hitting quickly. Thank you. You just don't, it just comes and knocks you off your feet. But very grateful for her. She's an old soul. So I think it didn't hit me as much because she's literally always been like a 40-year-old person and young child's body. So it's just been kind of like she hangs out with my friends and so she's just great. But yeah, that's been a new milestone for our family.
You were homeschooling through the pandemic. Can you tell me a
Right.
little bit about how you got started?
Sure. Well, I had always considered homeschooling. In fact, I had met with a friend who homeschooled. She had one child, and she still does, but she homeschooled him. He was about 3, and so was my daughter at the time. And it was just kind of where like I was getting my bearing straight with what to do with education. I've come a long way in our way of living, everything. So back then I was just kind of more conventional, like they go to school, at 4, they go to preschool type thing. And I hadn't enrolled her anywhere yet, but I did, meet with her and try to get her approach. And my first taste of homeschooling with her was, everything was labeled, everything was kind of strictly set out. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that. Kind of like not a whole lot of room for the child to lead. And I just kind of took that and ran with it. I took a bunch of notes at her house. I brought a notebook, and my way of living, being a military family, is we're kind of like on the go all the time and just kind of in survival mode. So seeing how her home was laid out, I kind of set these expectations for myself to meet. And I was younger. I was only 26, 27. So it was just kind of like a lot of pressure and organization, and that's what I was met with. And also when I'm told how someone does something, I will literally run with that. I'm more of a follower in life. I'm working on becoming a leader, as you can see. I've had a lot of people come to me asking for help in this way. But I'm more of a follower. Like, you tell me what to do, and that's how I'm going to set up, my home. Um, Slowly breaking off from that. But so yeah, just kind of like kept that in my back pocket. Ended up enrolling her anyway, and just kind of like having to we had a great time in preschool and kindergarten, but it still was always like kind of like a conviction, like, are you sure
Mhm.
you can do this? Then we moved, and I had pulled her because we had some issues with one of the teaching assistants was kind of harassing her, and I was like, forget that. I'm gonna pull her. And I had gotten out, now she's 5, so it's been 2 years. I gotten out all the things my friend said, ordered everything. And I just remember um like crying, like
Mhm.
so overwhelmed on like day 1. I think I did that for 2 years or 2 days, excuse me, 2 days. And I had my middle child was a baby, and I just was like losing my mind, still stuck in that public school mindset of, you wake up, boom, you start, you go till it's 3 p.m. type thing. Um, and so then I lasted 2 days doing that. So I ended up letting her go back to public because I'm like, I felt like I was failing her, even though I didn't give it a chance. I was just like, I can't do this. Sent her back, and then we had a decent time in public. Like, she's more of a social butterfly, so she kind of thrived. And then COVID hit, and she's now at that time was in 3rd grade. Um, and then we had found out after they sent all the kids home and closed that she was being like heavily harassed by other peers. And she finally confessed to us and was saying these words I've never even heard of. I had to actually Google them,
Yeah.
and just, you're thinking, wow, this is starting already. I mean, she's in 3rd grade. Are you kidding me? And it got so bad that she kind of went through this stage of guilt because even though she was on the receiving end, it was verbal stuff, but receiving end, she still felt guilty. And like I was near getting her a therapist. And then finally I had been introduced to my friend up in Virginia, and she sat me in her living room, baked muffins, had coffee. Our kids were playing like great. Didn't even really know her that well at the time. And she's like, look, there are people that are like that homeschool that are like your first experience, that are really set in their ways, really strict. There's no room. They schedule every second of the day. There's really no room for like free play. Everything's labeled. There's no room for your child to lead, basically. And then she's like homeschooling moms like myself, where I'm kind of in between that and the whole unschooling thing, where she's like, we take certain things seriously, but if my child wants to learn about robots, she's like, we'll go to the library and get a bunch of books, and then I can look up a craft on robots. So a little bit more um, freedom in her approach. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that there were, this, like, your home is a school, you're that teacher, as opposed to like you're a mom teaching your child how to thrive in this world and survive. I didn't know there was like a middle ground there, like, so once I learned that, I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this, and I blessed with those women that had already been homeschooling pre-COVID, and just kind of like they led the way, and I just kind of, molded myself and our family into that. And it was supposed to just be temporarily until the schools open. But up in Virginia, the restrictions were just a little bit, they had plexiglass and the masks, and my son was about to enter kindergarten, and I couldn't picture him thriving in an environment like that. So I kind of needed the force to continue to do it. I needed like an ultimatum and enough to get me to where I am now, because it's taken about 3 years for me to kind of like ease into confidence, and that, hey, I can do this, and my goodness, this is like 9 to 10 times better than, you know how we were feeling during public school.
Sure. How have you, and you spoke to it a little bit, how have you used your story to help others, give advice, and find a little inspiration?
Sure. I think I've been approached, like I said, I've been a follower for so long that, then we moved to a new state as a military family. And so I've had to build my own tribe here. And a lot of my friends are younger, which has been cool because my two younger kids will have friends with my friends' children. But then I have my oldest, who's like, she's like Mother Goose in all of my little friendships. And what's cool is because my friends are younger, they're like in between my daughter and I. So she'll walk off with the baby while my younger two will play with my friends' children. So it's just been like, that's one thing I've seen is my children just adapt to any age they're around. My daughter being an old soul, like I said, she'll take the baby. One of her best friends is like a 60-year-old woman that she helps take care of her horses with, and they're like best friends. They send each other horse memes, so it's just been, I think, just an example for
Yeah.
people to see, and they'll say like, how are your kids so well behaved? And I cannot take credit. I honestly just believe that it's the pressure has been off from state testing every second, sitting still for the whole day, especially boys. My middle is a boy, so he's more like hands on, moving around. I've had to kind of like manipulate around that to help him out. And yeah, I just think leading an example. I've never forced my way on people. They just literally see how my children are adaptive and like living life, and then the questions start. Like, well, what about this? Or I'm afraid, like I'm afraid of one of the big ones is like that they'll be thought of as weird. So yeah, I think just being an example, being Christ-like, that's what draws people in to want to kind of in a way mimic in a healthy way your style.
Yeah. Leading as not only a servant leader, this is the
Right,
example to follow, but also not
right,
pushing it, just
exactly.
showing.
Yeah, just existing. And I think too, I I've like learned, even if this is newer for me, is letting my children lead. Just it's been amazing to watch, and I'm like trying to cram, like a math test in or something, and they end up they need a break and they go over and make, some amazing like structure, out of Legos. And then I'm like blown away. And I mean, that's just kind of letting them follow their own independence, which is honestly what we want our children to do. Like our goal is to help support them and lead them into the path that interests them the most.
Sure. And I know you talk a lot about being, I want to say like homeschool student led learning.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit about what sets you
Yeah.
apart?
I think just the structure of the teacher setting where you're more type A and just kind of like a little bit anal about your schedule. Um, I was trying to follow that. And I was also, searching for inspiration on social media where it would literally look like someone is filming their homeschool day, like their children are in like muted colors and they're like peeling apples at age 2, and I just was like really like down on myself, like what my kids are missing out on so much. And it hit me just that, that's probably not real life. I mean, it's a great inspiration. I'm sure people can get outfit ideas or like, oh, it's a good idea to maybe try to make an apple pie with my toddler. But for myself, like, I think what sets me apart is just voicing that it doesn't have to be that way. That's not a qualification to homeschool.
Mhm.
And to be honest, your children don't want to try to reach those expectations themselves. They want to thrive in seeing you calm, relaxed, and a big thing is them being seen. That's a huge thing. I think, especially when you're consolidating school one on one or like, altering between children for the day with their lessons. They're seen more than they would be in a classroom, 15 to 25 students.
Mhm.
So I think just the one on one condensed time, we're done by lunch in a calm and relaxed way. And honestly, I will give my children goals. Like one may say they're bribes, but I'll say, okay, if we get this done, you're free. You can go do what you want. And other days, like today, they called my parents on FaceTime. We are military, so we live far away from home. And they're in their pajamas and they're relaxing. They woke up when their bodies were ready to wake up. So I think just letting them kind of dwell in that, letting their nervous systems just be relaxed. We still do the things necessary to teach them how to thrive someday independently. But I think that that's just not seen, unfortunately, anymore in the public school when they're just concentrating on sitting still all day, test, and they're not in the real world experiencing,
Mhm.
their surroundings.
Absolutely. Is there a curriculum that you follow or that you recommend, or are you using several?
I've kind of broken it up based upon my children's needs. They're all very different. My daughter, the oldest, she could do bookwork all day long. She thrives in her handwriting. She does very beautiful cursive. She wants it to look pretty. She's very, I don't really need to encourage her much to do her best. And then my son, he's a little bit more, he's 8 and he's just kind of all over the place. So I've had to do a little bit more hands-on, like bricks with math and just kind of like so he can visually see things. And then my 5-year-old, she's like a wild card. She's just all over the place. And what's cool with the youngest is they can look up to the older two, what they're learning, and they want to join in as well. So it just works, like in a full circle. But yeah, I definitely I love Matthew C. Because of its visual presentation. I've even like learned from Matthew C. Like just, oh, that's a cool angle to view math. And then I do love Abeka language. That's just a simple bookwork where they can just one page, we go over it. It's beautifully designed and easy to follow along. And then I like all about learning program. I do all about spelling and all about reading. And then just with science and history, honestly, going to the local, plane museum. We have a down here. We have like an airplane military base museum that they learn more from that than any textbook. Um, so yeah, and I think too when it comes to curriculum, the way the world has had its challenges lately, just with prices of groceries, we ended up getting chickens, and I grew up near Metro Detroit, so we did not have chickens. But my husband grew up in the country of New York, or not the country, but in the country in New York, it's not a country, where they kind of had a ton of land, animals, they really like got in the dirt. They have a big garden. And one of in my learning process of kind of letting go was we had gotten chicks and we incubated the eggs and they hatched. And again, it took me a minute to I'm like, oh, they're going to smell, they're going to poop everywhere. But my kids were really into it. It was a great learning experience. And one day we had hatched the chicks and they were out in the garage and I had given my daughter um, like a math sheet. She's like at least a year and a half ahead of where she should be at her age. Um, but I was like, no, we need your math sheet. Here it is. We try to get math over with quickly because it's like their least favorite. And I came back in the room and noticed she was gone. I was like, where the heck is she? And so I found her in the garage and she's like, the chicks were out of food. This one was stuck and, they're out of water. Their lamp had fallen, just things like, that were kind of detrimental to the safety of the chicks. And I caught myself while I scolded her and I was like, I gave you, this lesson to do. And like, you're out here playing with birds. And then I learned, like, I mean, it took probably 20 minutes to think like, oh my gosh, that is like a life lesson. She independently went, sought after, took care of these living beings. They're vulnerable, they're fragile. Um, and especially with ag prices, like lately she's learning how to be self-sufficient. I'm like, that's more of a lesson than this math page she's already ahead of in. And so that was kind of like one of the turning points where I was like, okay, what really matters? Obviously, I want her to stick with the math, but I want her to desire things that can help her be independent, as
Mhm.
an adult.
I mean, I was public schooled and I
Yeah.
got into college. Okay, you have some help, some hand holding. I didn't
Yeah.
know how to do anything.
Right.
Nothing that we learned in a school setting equals
Exactly.
real life responsibility.
Yeah, and I do believe like the heart of teachers. Like I'm not like I hate public school. I definitely we had a decent experience in public school, and we had the opportunity to move back home for a little bit. And she actually had my first grade teacher, which was awesome. But my teacher would pull me aside and say, Hannah, it's not like it used to be where we would have like a big Thanksgiving dinner and everyone brought their siblings. It was like a big family. The teacher was allowed to teach according to, obviously, appropriately teach out of their heart. She said, now we're all like, we are told what to do every single day. And she said, first grade is when they start testing, but they don't average the test. It's just to prepare the child for test taking literally until they graduate, and she just was like heartbroken. Here's someone who taught me as a first grader, telling me the difference, and the school being a loving environment, things have just changed drastically. So yeah, that was pretty eye-opening to me. That the teacher goes to school for an education degree. A lot of them have a big heart, and then they kind of have, they're under the thumb of, the district and told what to do, and they're not really allowed freedom in, how they want to teach the child out of their heart.
Yeah. Is there anything, and I'm dying to know, how do you balance the finances of affording homeschool curriculums? Is there a way to get creative?
Oh yeah, so I mean that is also another um, something that turns people away quite quickly because it's hard. It's the temptation is to send them to public school where that's provided for your child. Um, I found, I would actually go on eBay, and you can find a lot of the teacher books on there. Because I do, as my kids get older, when they're younger, I'm not like buying the answer key when they're like 5. It's basically like, what shape is this? But I do buy the answer keys as they age, just because I find myself learning math all over again, and sometimes they'll come to me. My daughter is ahead of where I stand developmentally in math, and so I for sure buy the answer keys. So answer keys, they're not really written in, so those can definitely be bought used. I know there's like local Facebook groups you can find, like our homeschooling swaps. Our library would have like a bin of donated curriculum. I usually will at least buy, the workbooks they write in new, and then kind of do what I can to find books used, even if they're a little, like stained or whatever. I don't mind. And then the beauty in it is you can sell it when you're done, if you please.
And I know you spoke to the community aspect a little bit. That sounds like another part of that. Hey, I'm willing to purchase it. Maybe the next person's not, and I
Oh
can
yeah.
pay it forward down the line.
Yes, and I've also been learning too about, I saw someone post yesterday about not letting the curriculum control you basically. And I have a friend that totally just, she does her own thing. And I remember last year showing all the moms that, I mean, there are such big groups of moms polling each year. It climbs every year. And I remember showing all my curriculum, and my friend said, yeah, don't worry about me. I'm not even going to get any curriculum. And she just kind of does her own thing. And her kids are intelligent. They're happy. So yeah, you can't let the curriculum control you. And there's also, there's books on Amazon that kind of include everything. I pieced apart my curriculum as my kids age, but my 5-year-old, literally, I found her, a friend recommended a workbook on Amazon for like 17 bucks. And I think too, just, we had a hummingbird feeder, and my kids watched the hummingbird and they wanted to learn about it. Or in our last station, we had crabs in our neighborhood. Like one day of the year, I don't know why. I'm sure there's science behind it, but they would just be crawling everywhere, and they caught them, and they're like, I want to learn what they eat. And so just things like that. That can be your curriculum, if you choose. And I also hear a lot of people when they pull their children, they'll take an entire year off to kind of detox and let their nervous system just kind of relax out of that rushed, hurried lifestyle that's so hard on children their age. I mean, I remember arguing with my daughter every single morning, brushing her hair, making sure her lunch was ready, going for all these rules with drop off, pick up. And then she'd get off the bus at like 4 p.m. and she had dance and she had homework. And it was just like, I wouldn't even like that after sitting in, a school for 6 hours. So it just really proves how backwards, unfortunately, we have it as a society.
Absolutely. Being a little bit more student led. Hey, slow down, give them attention. What are their needs? Making it
Right,
accessible. You don't have
right,
to have a Instagram worthy
right.
homeschool
Yeah,
room or separate outbuilding, and
exactly.
then making it creative and allowing
Yeah,
people to do
exactly.
what they need to do, as you
Yeah,
said.
and I have another example that, like, my son who's busy. He I think I in his science book, which I do purchase the science books and the history through Rebecca. I just have them read through it. There's little review questions that are included. It's great. But we are learning about celery and their roots, and when you cut them, you can see their roots and whatever. And I could tell I was kind of losing his attention. And he's like, well, we have celery in the fridge. Can I go look at it? I'm like, that's a great idea. And so then he's like, well, I want to cut it because we need to see them when they're cut. And I was like, okay. So here I am teaching him proper use of a knife, like on a cutting board. You hold it like this. And then while he was cutting it, I was reading, I'm like, there's no way he's going to grasp this, but okay, he's distracted with cutting the celery. Well, I'm learning that that's the way he learns. So I read it, did a read aloud of like the science behind celery stalks, thinking like, whatever, this is probably a waste of time. And then he's like, hey, can I get, when he was done cutting, I'm still reading. He's like, can I get little bowls of peanut butter? I want to bring them to his sisters, for a snack. So here we have like he's showing compassion and kindness to his siblings, proper use of knife, learning how to cut, and then learning about the structure of celery. And he went and gave it to them. They're all happy. And then I asked him the review questions, and he got every single one of them right.
Wow.
Here I thought he wasn't listening, and that's just how he processes. He has to be moving, and which would not. There's no way that'd be allowed, in a school setting. Unfortunately, I mean, that gift of his that he needs to work that way would totally. I mean, he would be going so against the grain, learning in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you making this accessible and not scary
Yeah.
and very practical as well. Is there somewhere that you would recommend people go to find you and learn more and get plugged in?
Yeah, I'm pretty much only on Instagram. It's just the Casual Homeschooler, and I'm pretty active on there. I do a lot of, questions because my goal is to make people feel seen, and I just think, it's taken, like I said, it's taken me almost 4 years to get to where I am, and my biggest I love when people say, "Oh, me too," or "Yeah, how did you handle that?" Relating to people is like one of the best gifts God's given us. You can read the Bible and get direction and guidance, but when someone in person in the flesh is like, "Oh, I had that problem too. This helped a lot." That is like the best gift ever. So I think just being able to relate, I try to stay pretty down to earth on there and open to questions, open to learning myself. I've learned, from what other people's experiences have been. And I think the biggest key is having a tribe. It's so easy to feel isolated. I'm not a big social media person as far as, Facebook or anything like that. I like in person meetups and letting our children play. And I understand that's totally hard to find sometimes. Where I found that a lot was like library story time, or I'd be in Carter's store and would make a friend. Just kind of throw. I am a very introverted person, and being a military wife, I've had to learn you kind of got to throw yourself out there healthily. Like make sure you protect yourself and are on guard with friendships that might be harmful to you. But I really had to take a step out and introduce myself and a good way to introduce yourself is to ask like, oh, how old is he or she, and then it just starts from there. And but building a tribe is key. You need I know the new term for it now is like couch friends. I've seen on the internet, and that's literally just the friends you don't feel like you need to entertain. They can come over, sit on your couch, you brew some coffee, whatever you like to do, and it's just kind of play. So yeah, that's big is a tribe.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. I appreciate your time.